Our next presenters are Shifra Wax and Kath Thorburn. Kath is probably known to lots of Australia, I should think. So Shifra has comprehensive research experience at various universities across Australia, including the University of Canberra, the University of Newcastle, the University of Melbourne, and currently with the University of New South Wales in Sydney and the University of Sydney. How do you know where you are, darling? You just do it all at home nowadays anyway. That's the good thing, isn't it? Kath Thorburn has 30 years experience in mental health as a mental health clinician, educator, facilitator and consultant, and as a family member. Kath is a PhD candidate at the Centre for Primary Healthcare and Equity at the University of New South Wales, and they are speaking about co-designing a physical health conversation guide, working together for hope and health. Thank you, Kath. And Shifra, thank you.
Thanks, Faye. And first of all, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're on today, the Yungambay people, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and understand that this always was and always is Aboriginal land, and to acknowledge all the various lands that others are joining us from today. We do want to do a quick clarification on time, because we would hate everyone sitting here thinking, damn, I was sure lunch was at 12:25. So, which it says on the program, and it's now 12:20. So we will absolutely do our best to rein this in about 10 minutes so that everyone gets off to lunch in time. Is that okay? Or have I misread?
I'm not sure what happened, but everybody has been to time. So,
yeah, I know. So anyway, it's no problem, I'm sure, but we're interested in maintaining good relationships with you all, which I'm sure means having lunch and not listen to us rabbit on too long. So obviously this is Shifra and I'm Kath, and we also just wanted to acknowledge our co-researcher Bani Adam, and also my supervisors Mark Harris, Catherine Spooner and Karen Fisher. And we'd also like to acknowledge that some of the funding from this research came from Raising the Bar, a fantastic project that was funded through Lived Experience Framework grants. So
So just to introduce a bit of background from the project itself, as is mentioned, it is Kath's PhD project, and it's two-stage approach, looking at improving physical health care of mental health service users in primary care settings. So stage one was the co-design workshops themselves, and actually the research around people's experiences of that. So that included people with lived experience as co-designers, GPs, and also primary health service providers from the PHN, and family members as well with lived experience of caring for a loved one. We're now at the stage of testing the actual tool, the guide itself, which means we're looking at again, people's lived experience of using the guide and any improvements, and also speaking with GPs and family members as well. And the focus of this presentation is really looking at sharing the sort of key learnings and outcomes from stage one.
Yeah, so just to provide a broader context, this the key questions that we're asking are listed on the side. So what are the characteristics of the co-design process, and what were the methods by which it achieved the outcomes, and what were the co-designers' experience of this process? And we really wanted to ensure that we had lived experience embedded throughout the project. So lived experience co-facilitators, co-researchers, lived experience advisory group, and lived experience analysis, co-analysis of the data. Obviously, there were some challenges to that in the context of a PhD, and I think some of the things we've done have kind of pushed some of the boundaries around that, hopefully, and created some new ideas for thinking about what's possible in that area.
And just a brief definition of what we used to sort of guide the workshops and the co-design process itself was firstly defining what the problem is. So we really didn't go in with any preconceptions about what people's issues were and what was going to be raised. And then secondly, developing these solutions together. So that was with, as I mentioned, the participants, the co-designers were from all different backgrounds, and then testing these solutions. So just about the guide itself, this is kind of what it looks like if you want to open your phones, or there's another slide at the end where you can actually use the QR code, which we're all used to. So view the guide. In terms of the outcome, it is a power shifting conversation tool where service users can reflect and record their preferred language, for example, communication style, what's worked for them in the past, what doesn't work in terms of maybe medications, and also really reflecting on that interaction between their physical health and mental health, and also having a space for health measures that are important to their health and to the person. The co-designers all agreed that supporting interactions between people with lived experience and GPs and other health workers was really key to improving their physical health. In terms of the co-design process, as I mentioned, we really went in with a blank slate and having no idea what the outcome was, and that's part of co-design. There were a wide range of barriers that were identified, and speaking to Chris and what was outlined previously around discrimination certainly came up in those workshops as well. In terms of the possible solutions, there were 12 identified, and 2 were we all voted on were the preferred solutions, which were taken back to the PHN. So one of which was this guide, and then the other one was looking at embedding a peer worker in a primary healthcare setting. And that were selected based on availability of funding and sort of the ongoing projects that were already existing. In terms of, and refining and prototyping a preferred solution, we had a chance to have additional co-design workshops to really tease that out in the workshops 4 and 5, and then the co-designing of the research design was discussed in those workshops as well. That's
cool.
So in terms of the data that's collected that we're looking at, the sort of findings of today were documented in the co-design in the co-design workshops, but they weren't analysed for the purpose of this this analysis. But we used to sort of guide and reflect to capture what was there, because we chose not to record the workshops because we thought it might potentially impact people's contribution and the comfort within the space, certainly being on Zoom as well. And also, so the data that is analysed was the co-design participants' experiences. So that was in focus groups or interviews, depending on their preferences.
Yeah, so as Shifra said, and I guess one of the things that's probably worth clarifying here is kind of opting to talk a little bit more about the co-design experience research and the outcomes of that than the actual co-design process itself. But we're really, really happy to share that process if anyone wants to talk to us afterwards. But because lived experience, or the experience of being involved in co-designs, is still quite under-researched, and so we feel like this is something that can be really useful for all of us. We engaged in a process of coding using in vivo. We used Braun and Clark's reflexive thematic analysis, and we also used Neil's iterative categorisation to kind of systematically structure the analysis process and to provide a clear audit trail. We didn't quite manage a true co-analysis, but what we did do was that Shifra, Banny and I undertook an initial independent analysis of 2 transcripts, coding of the 2 transcripts, and then we met to go through our coding and compare how we went with that, and then I undertook most of the coding and the initial analysis from there, which was one of the, things that the PhD process, kind of impacted in terms of how collaboratively we could undertake that process. I then obviously took that back to Shifra and Bani and also to my PhD supervisors to further refine the themes. And then following that inductive analysis, the findings were then framed through Vicky's and colleagues' 8 mechanisms of change, which is an explanatory theoretical model for co-design. And the beauty of being here is that we can just send you straight to Vicky to speak to that at some point during the symposium. So the findings, it's really hard to tell you these findings in just a few minutes, but I guess some of what came out in our findings completely confirms what we know and understand about co-design, which is that co-creating knowledge and making decisions to influence change requires space for developing relationships and for attending to and shifting power. The other thing we identified was these kind of underlying dual processes, and we're calling them dual processes at the moment. That's maybe tentative and probably not where we're going to land with this, but that support and facilitate that kind of collaborative space, and that time is a key mediating factor. So just to explain here with the little model on the screen, which is still very much in draft, is that we had 3 key themes, which were sharing and generating knowledge, creating and holding space, and experiencing and influencing change. And for each theme, there was also evidence of these kind of underlying processes whereby the co-design space, so the facilitators and the co-designers, were engaged in these kind of concurrent 2-way sort of finely balanced processes. So if we take creating and holding space, for example, the group identified experiencing both transforming processes and also stabilising processes. So transforming processes kind of occurred when people had unexpected realisations, or their biases were challenged, or their eyes were open to kind of different perspectives. And stabilising processes were recognised, in the structure and the size of the co-design, lived experience co-facilitation, the fact that there were just over 50% of the co-designers had lived experience, the processes that were employed to balance power and develop relationships. And these kind of, we really could see in listening to people's experience of the co-design that kind of almost minuscule oscillation between those kind of transforming and stabilising processes were what allowed space for for collaborative decision making. And I think in terms of the application then, what we're talking about is, as we all know, co-design brings people with diverse and complementary perspectives together in a process of making decisions collaboratively. And this is what differentiates it from consultation, right? Where instead diverse perspectives are collected, but not necessarily agreed or adopted, or they don't necessarily make the decisions in that space. And perhaps it's when we don't pay attention to and allow time for those processes that co-design can slip back into something that is closer to consultation. And we're definitely not suggesting there isn't a place for consultation in improving healthcare. There definitely is. In fact, good consultation, as a friend of mine says, a peer worker and facilitator, good consultation is much better and less harmful than bad co-design. Oh, and so just, look, I won't, I think because of time, the left of the screen is just summing up. I'll leave you to finish off with the quotes.
So just wanted to share some of the quotes. I felt like we were valued and kind of led the conversations rather than the clinicians. That was good. And I think the outcomes were probably different to what I would have chosen. That's the whole point, isn't it? So just highlighting that we really needed to form those relationships and elevate that position of lived experience and trying to facilitate. I forgot to mention before, in terms of trying to make it accessible to co-designers, there were instances where people came into the university if they had unstable internet, and trying to have as much sort of support to really have the meaningful contributions there, and just highlighting again that the outcome, are often unexpected, as they should be in co-design. So thank you very much. We'd like to really acknowledge all the partners.
Yeah, and the co-designers who have all agreed to be openly acknowledged, and also our graphic designer, who also has lived experience of physical health and mental health issues, which I can tell you made a big difference to that process of getting together with the graphic designer as part of the co-design and developing the tool together. So yeah, there's obviously more we could say, but we've really enjoyed talking to you, and thanks for your time.
Thank you. Well, that was really wonderful. Do we have any questions? People are really wanting to go to lunch, probably. And nobody's texted me on my phone. You can. I don't say anything I don't mean. So if you have a question, you can send that in. And sorry? I've already warned them about the night time. Yeah, so thank you so much. Thank you to all of the people who presented here today. I think it was a really good group of presentations, put together really well. I really loved the comments that you finished with in the quotes. I think they were really beautiful. At Flourish, we don't talk about person-centred services. We talk about person-led services. And I think that quote, the top quote, that was alluding to that, and that shift of power is so important in co-design. Everybody needs to be equal at that table, and no meetings after the meeting to change what was decided in the meeting. So thank you everybody for joining us. We hope you have a lovely lunch. There has been a workshop change, a location change. So health coaching is now in seminar room 3, not in seminar 1, which is swapped with the leadership workshop. I hope you understand what that means, because I've just read it and don't understand it. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us. Have a lovely lunch and stay safe. Okay, thank you.